Juice Bikes recently sent me their brand new step-through version of their extremely popular RipCurrent S fat tire e-bike for evaluation. And it's been a great introduction for me into the difference between their philosophy and the philosophy of a lot of brands offering less expensive fat tire e-bikes. At an MSRP of $2,600, it's significantly more expensive than the most popular fat tire e-bikes that are on the market right now, but it's about half the cost of a mid-drive electric mountain bike. Yet for that price, Juice is able to offer a rider much more performance both on and off trail for the rider that wants to do more than get from point A to point B. Just look at the size of the battery. You can't miss it. It offers you up to 100 miles of range and up to 1,300 watts of motor output. Your choice. It comes standard with everything that you see here, including a headlight that outputs 1,050 lumens. It comes shipped not only in a heavy-duty box, but packed in form-fit dense padding to make sure that when you open that box, you're not surprised by a bike that might have been damaged, regardless of how messed up the box might be when you get it. The Juice Bikes RipCurrent S Step-Thru is not just a big jump up in price from the most popular fat tire e-bikes that are on the market today. It's also a big step up in what you get. The Juice Bikes RipCurrent S Step-Thru is a fat tire e-bike combining proven off-road components with the convenience of a step-through frame. It's available in 4 colors, including this sparkling Arctic white, black, yellow, and beach blue. In fact, the paint is applied in 3 layers to get its combination of color, sparkle, and gloss, a noticeable upgrade over the paint found on many fat tire e-bikes. The heat-treated 6061 aluminum frame's lack of top tube combines with high sweat bars to accommodate riders from a recommended 5 foot 3 inches to 6 foot 1 inch tall and a total payload of 275 pounds. The complete bike weighs 73 pounds with the massive 52 volt 19.2 amp hour battery contributing 11.7 pounds. That's good for nearly a kilowatt hour of power, which will provide a whopping 99 miles of range in eco mode and up to 28 miles of range in race mode, exceeding 28 miles per hour the whole time. Bafang supplies the hub motor set to a sustained 750 watts of power from the factory, with a peak of up to 1,300 watts available for riders who unlock the motor in the settings. One way Juiced Bikes allows that performance is by integrating the controller into the frame in a way that allows all of that metal to act as a heat sink. That helps keep the controller cool for increased reliability, especially over the course of high power riding sessions. Feeding the controller is a torque sensor that supplies data on how hard you're pressing on the pedals to the motor power algorithm. The harder you push on the pedals, the more power the controller will put into the motor at every setting of the pedal assist system. Attached to the right rear dropout, the sensor also has a traditional cadence sensor if that's your preference for pedal assist. You can select either torque-based or cadence-based pedal assist via the small LCD matrix display. All settings are limited to Class 2 e-bike regulations from the factory, but Juiced Bikes includes easy instructions to unlock Class 3 performance or even what they call racetrack mode, intended for use on private property or other places where unregulated e-bikes are permitted. Stopping power is provided by Tektro hydraulic disc brakes grabbing 180mm rotors front and rear. Both levers integrate motor cutoff switches that instantly cut power to the motor whenever you try to stop. A 52-tooth chainring pulls on an 11 to 32-tooth 9-speed cassette. A microshift trigger shifter is paired with a microshift derailleur for quick and precise gear selection. The 26-inch aluminum rims wear 4-inch wide Blackwall Kenda Crusades tucked under removable polymer fenders. The rear fender is split to allow your choice of full coverage or a minimalist half fender if you don't plan on using the included aluminum rear rack. An adjustable air fork provides 80mm of travel with hydraulic preload and lockout. Mounted on the fork brace is a headlight with a whopping 1,050 lumens of output, roughly 3 times the brightness of most factory headlights. Its aluminum body not only contributes strength but also aids in dissipating heat generated by the Cree 7-watt LEDs. The taillight doubles as a brake light, lighting anytime either brake lever is pulled, whether or not the lights are turned on. The Cell Royale look-in saddle combines gel padding with an elastomer mounting system for shock absorption. The cover is a material specifically designed to stay cool even in direct sunlight, with dual windows showing off the gel underneath. A Assembly of the RipCurrent S Step-Thru is as straightforward as most direct-to-consumer e-bikes. However, in addition to an extra thick outer box, Juice Bikes now packs their bikes in custom-fit high-density foam padding. This is great for protecting your bike in shipping, though it does mean I can't use the typical rear wheel padding to hold the bike upright while I'm assembling it. One other source of struggle was removing the bolt that protects the fork dropouts. None of the included wrenches fit the nuts, and you actually need two of them to hold one end while spinning the nut off the other. Anyone mechanically inclined at all with a pair of adjustable wrenches should easily be able to assemble the bike, though I do recommend you have a friend help by holding the bike at different steps of the process. One of the first things I want to point out is that I have this screen angled down so that it's picked up on camera a little better so you guys can see what I see. I would ordinarily have it up in this position because I can still read the screen, and then I have easier access to the pedal assist controls. But you can see I can rotate this by hand. That's a philosophy of mine. A lot of my bar components I keep taut but not locked down, because if you crash, you want these things to be able to rotate out of the way. They might break anyway, but you reduce the chance that they're going to break if you have a minor drop of your bike kind of thing. This is why I have the bike left in Class 2 e-bike settings. In the state of North Carolina, basically the laws are very friendly to e-bikes as long as the motor assist is limited to 20 miles per hour. The throttle, one of the nice things about it is that it works no matter what your pedal assist level is that you have set. And that's a big plus for me for the way Juice Bikes does it. However, it is locked to a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour no matter what your settings are in the display. And this is a good example for where I like throttle but zero pedal assist. I just went down a steep hill. I've got a little steep climb right here. I can get some throttle, and then I level off and I don't need any pedal assist again. I love that about how this works. About 50% of manufacturers do it this way, where the throttle is active even at zero pedal assist, and about 50% disable the throttle even though the bike is on if you go to zero pedal assist. And I do not like that. So big +1 for Juice Bikes for doing it this way. I think one of the first things that I noticed riding this bike is something you might notice on video. These bars are tall and super wide. I think they take up the full width of the 155-degree field of view of my GoPro Hero 9 with max lens mod. I cannot get a wider field of view than this. And they are tall and they are wide. And it's really these bars that create this upright seating position that differs greatly from the seating position you'll find on the standard RipCurrent S. Juice Bikes set out not to just give RipCurrent S components and performance to people who don't want a top tube, but they know that a lot of riders who don't want a top tube, well, that correlates with the desire to have a more upright seating position. And so they did both in one frame. And that's why one of the things to keep in mind when you're deciding what bike to get, the RipCurrent S or this RipCurrent S Step-Thru, they are two fundamentally different riding experiences. The RipCurrent S is set up more like a traditional mountain bike in seating position. You have to deal with the top tube, but for me, I actually prefer a more aggressive riding position. The RipCurrent S Step-Thru that I'm showing you today has a much more relaxed, less aggressive seating position, if you will. And this is the kind of place where I really notice an impact of an upright seating position. I'm catching a ton of wind in my chest. Now, it is an e-bike. I can make up for the increased drag by increasing the pedal assist. That's not a big deal with an e-bike, but it is something that you'll notice. Now we got a little climb here. I have it in pedal assist level 1. A very interesting thing about the way the RipCurrent S and S Step-Thru do their pedal assist, there's actually 5 levels of pedal assist from the factory: Eco, 1, 2, 3, and Sport. And then I have racetrack mode unlocked. You have to be in racetrack mode and pedaling to get all 1300 watts of output out of the motor. But because the torque sensing pedal assist limits how much power is going to the motor based upon how hard you're pressing on the pedals, you're not going to just instantly get 1300 watts. You're still going to have to push on the pedals pretty hard, and I'm going to show that later in the ride. Torque sensing pedal assist is my favorite type of pedal assist because it's so intuitive. When you select a different level of pedal assist, you're basically selecting a range of assistance, of wattage. There's going to be a maximum wattage that you're going to get per level of pedal assist, and then the power is going to vary within that range based upon how hard you're pressing on the pedals. One of the complaints I have about this display is that you can see miles per hour great, you can see the battery bar great, you can see what pedal assist level I'm on very easily. But I'm 51, I have a really hard time reading that wattage at a glance. I can see it if I stare at it, but that's not what I want to be doing when I'm riding. But like I'm doing right now, I'm pressing hard on the pedals and I'm getting about 430 watts before it starts to drop back down. 400, 413, 415. And I think that's the limit roughly of pedal assist wattage at pedal assist level 1. But then it flattens out and I'm barely pressing on the pedals, and now I'm only getting 67, 52, 51 watts, 50 watts. And so it's super intuitive because the harder you press on the pedals, the more help you're going to get. And that's when you need more help. You need more help when all of a sudden you're climbing or you're accelerating and you're pushing hard on the pedals. Ooh, here's a good example of where torque-based pedal assist is great. I can pedal through that tight spot and I'm not getting a ton of pedal assist because I don't want it. And now when I accelerate, it pops up 350 watts right there because of how hard I was pressing. Kenda specs both the RipCurrent S and RipCurrent S Step-Thru with the excellent Kenda Crusades. They're my favorite OEM multi-surface tire, a knobby, if you will. They're great in soft stuff, loose stuff, wet stuff, but they're also not that loud rolling on pavement. I have these down to 10 PSI. And so this is about as loud as you can make them. And you can certainly hear them on video, but this is much quieter than other, even Kenda brand knobbies like the Juggernaut. The Juggernauts are so loud, but these are nice. The trigger shifter and the derailleur are from Microshift. This is my first time ever using Microshift components. And I think the best way of putting it is I don't notice a difference in shifting at all between these components and equivalent level of Shimano. Zero difference. I shift and I get the gear I want. And that's all I care about. I like trigger shifters a lot, just in general, because I don't have to move my hand in order to select gears. With the thumb shifters that come on lower price fat tire e-bikes, I can't stand them. I really do not like them because you have to get your hand up out of the riding position to downshift especially. So I'm glad there's a trigger shifter. And I don't mind it being micro shift components at all. Zero problems. The motor is the same 750 nominal watts Bafang hub motor found in a lot of fat tire e-bikes, except it's connected to a 52 volt system. And that's what allows the controller to get up to 1300 watts of power out of the motor while still being classified as a class 2 or a class 3 e-bike, depending on how you have your max speed set in the settings. Okay, zero pedal assist, gonna hit the throttle, and that's gonna help me get through this intersection. Got up to about 994 watts there. The throttle is actually limited to 1050 watts or so. I have not been able to get more than 1050 watts of power out of the throttle. The 1300 watts is only available in pedal assist, and that's in racetrack mode. Okay, let's see what this fork does. There's a little poof sound to it, but it does a great job of absorbing speed bumps like that. And it's still a lot quieter than spring-based forks. The air fork is adjustable, though I've left it the way it came from the factory. I do have the pump that you need to have in order to adjust the pressure in the fork. And you'll find instructions on air forks in general as to how to set up the preload just based on the pressure itself if you wanted to adjust it. But those instructions, as you'll see, they're just a starting point, and then you decide whether you want it firmer or softer from there. Well, since I'm fine with the way it's behaving straight from the factory, I haven't felt the need to mess with it. The air fork isn't just for big bumps, it also does a great job of reducing the vibration in the bars from slow speed stuff like this broken pavement. This is always a great test of the suspension of any bike, and this air fork does great. The air fork is not a top of the line air fork by any stretch, but it is noticeably better than the entry-level spring forks that come on lower costing fat tire e-bikes. This is a good test of the lowest gear on an e-bike for me. And like the vast majority of hub motored e-bikes, this doesn't have a true granny gear. So for climbs like this, I do need a little bit of motor assist. Okay, now we're gonna do a throttle test here. And I'm going downhill, so that's why it's actually getting above 20 miles per hour pretty easily. And it's still giving me like 35 watts. What I found is 22 watts is how much the controller draws, whether you're pedaling in pedal assist or you have the throttle actuated, whether or not power is actually being sent to the motor. So 22 watts here is actually 0 watts of pedal assist. And now we're going to see what happens as we start to get an incline. So the motor starts kicking in. I've got a bit of wind in my chest and a slight incline. It's not a big one. And you can see that the actual speed tops out at about 19.5 miles per hour. And I have not been able to crack that with throttle alone. As long as it's flat or slight incline or anything, it's not going to go above 20 miles per hour. It's not a big deal for me because I only use just throttle like this in demonstrations for these videos. And now we're going to go in pedal assist. I'm going to show you something in racetrack mode. Racetrack mode not only gives you access to all 1300 watts of power, but it totally ignores your max speed limit setting. And that's about all I can do right there because of the wind. But it's giving me power based upon how hard I'm pressing. Whew! Now I go down to Sport mode, I'm gonna let this slow down. And then sport mode, that obeys your max speed limit setting, which I have at 20 miles per hour. The other reason, as you can hear in my breath, that it's called racetrack mode is you yourself have to be in racetrack mode in order to access that. You have to be pressing hard on the pedals or it's not going to give you that maximum motor output. This is not an electric motorcycle. If you're not working racetrack hard, it's not going to work racetrack hard for you. Now, while I'm still recovering from that bout of intensity, I'm going to talk a little bit about the saddle. The saddle is a very fancy gel padded mountain bike saddle, and I would like it very much on something like the RipCurrent S. I do think it might have been a mistake to carry it over to this step-through version precisely because of the upright seating position. Why do people like upright seating positions? Well, in a large part, it's because it reduces the amount of pressure you have on your hands and on your wrists. But that pressure has to go somewhere, and where it goes is on your sit bones. And with an upright seating position, you're actually also rotating your pelvis. So for some of us, like myself, that rotates some of my natural padding out of the way. I think that a lot of people will be swapping this saddle out for something a little wider once they get some experience with it. Part of this upright seating position is helped with these nice ergonomic grips. Personally, I am not a fan of ergonomic grips because they only give you one natural hand position on the bar, whereas I'm a little more dynamic and I will change my position on the bar. So I generally prefer a cylindrical grip. But if I was going to go to an ergo grip like this, these are the kind I would get. They provide great palm support, which helps reduce pressure on your hands, which then helps reduce pressure on your wrists. They're nice and sticky. You're going to want to wear gloves when you ride this. I wear them anyway for safety, because if I crash, well, my hand is probably going to hit first. But these have such good grip. They might be hard on bare skin, but I think that's a good thing. And then the other thing is they have bar locks. So no matter how hard you're going to be cranking on these to put human power to the pedals, they're not going to rotate. While I myself would pick cylindrical grips over ergo grips if I was given the choice, these are fantastic ergo grips, and I understand why they're on the step-through. This step-through bike may be equipped with all of the same components, all of the same power as a standard RipCurrent S, but this upright seating position does give it a fundamentally different riding experience, especially when you start to push the capabilities of the power and components. It's helpful to think of a cyclist as an upside down pendulum, and the end of your pendulum, the weight part of the pendulum, is your center of gravity. The more upright you sit, the higher your center of gravity is, and so the longer a pendulum you're creating from the ground, from the contact patch between the tires and the trail. And so as you rock a certain number of degrees from side to side, when you're more upright, it takes more effort on your part to get there. It takes more effort on your part to slow the movement. And it's going to take you a longer time to get there because you're having to carve a longer arc. This section right here, yeah, I don't feel as confident. And I have a ton of riding experience. Yeah, normally I could bomb right through that, right through this, over 20 miles an hour, but I got to keep it down 17 miles an hour. That's still faster than what many of you watching this might be comfortable doing in the first place. I mean, I'm putting this at its limits, at least as far as I'm comfortable with. I want to point out that this is not a design flaw. It's a design trade-off. You can't have a bike that's upright like this with a higher center of gravity and not lose some of that confidence that you'd have in stuff like this. See, I can still do 15 miles an hour around this turn, 14, 12, yeah, see? So I tried to keep it at 15, but I didn't feel that confident. Hey. But you have to be honest with yourself and how you're going to ride with this bike. And as long as you're honest with yourself, you'll be able to make a better decision between the standard RipCurrent S and this step-through version. So I've done this climb multiple times in pedal assist 1 or 2, and that's all I need to get up this. It's a very steep climb, and this bike is a great climber without all 1,300 watts available to me. See, and that'd even break 1,000 watts right there. And I'm purposely trying to slow down so that this has to work harder to help me, like right here. But I will tell you, gosh, this is even almost getting away from me right there. It's accelerating when I'm barely touching the pedals. Woo, this is a climber in racetrack mode. Yeah, I can't even keep it in racetrack mode. And pedal assist 1 is all I need to get up this climb. Even with this bike being 73 pounds and not having a granny gear, this is a great climber set the way it is from the factory. And that trail, both going down it and up it, is a lot to ask of any e-bike. Most of you watching this won't even get on things that are as steep as this is. And this does fine for a class 2 e-bike. It's a great climber. Oh. I'm coming up the last bit of this climb and I realized I forgot to talk about the brakes. And part of the reason is I just don't notice them. They give me 2-finger stopping power. They are hydraulic with 180 millimeter rotors, and they stop just fine. They give me great modulation in the middle of braking. I haven't had them fade. They're perfect for the kind of riding that I do. No issues. Now that I've talked about the brakes and the motor and the torque sensing pedal assist system and the micro shift components and the air fork, it's time for me to talk about the last feature that I haven't had a chance to show you yet. It's the headlight. It puts out 1,050 lumens, which is the most powerful headlight that I've had come stock on any e-bike so far. Check this out. Oh my gosh. I don't know if it's gonna come out on video, but this light is so bright, but it's also a very broad throw. It's perfect for a bike headlight. Wow, look at this. Its broad throw means that I can see around these curves and I can see into the woods, not just the trail. This is a fantastic light. This is the best light that I have seen so far, spec standard on an e-bike. It definitely took me a couple rides to get used to the upright riding posture that's built into the RipCurrent S Step-Thru. I'm used to riding e-bikes that are set up a little bit more like a traditional mountain bike with flatter bars, a little more aggressive posture. That's actually my preference. But the Step-Thru is more than just the RipCurrent S without a top tube. The whole bike is geared around riders who have a preference or a need to step through the frame to be able to mount and unmount the bike versus swinging their leg over top. And a lot of times that includes a more upright seating position. On that note, you can't ignore the fact that this gigantic battery takes up a lot of the space that you might want to use to step through the frame. And the mounts for a water bottle case, well, if you were to actually mount a water bottle here, you don't have the benefit of being able to step through the frame anymore. You're going to have to swing your leg over the saddle to get on and off. That might still be okay for you because you might just want the upright seating position and you don't necessarily need to use the step-through function, but it is something to keep in mind when you're comparing this to other step-through bikes. You have to think about your own mobility needs, how this battery might play into that, and what your hydration plan might be if you're not going to mount a water bottle here. I certainly am not. However, even if you do, even if you treat this like a high step, you still get that upright seating position along with all of the other components from the RipCurrent S that are geared for people who want to do harder riding, who want to do longer riding. You have a battery that's almost a full kilowatt hour with a 52 volt system powering a motor that can peak up to 1,300 watts. You have a 9-speed drivetrain when you're pedaling. You have fenders and a rack standard, and you could even take this rack off and go with a minimalist rear fender if that's your preference. You have an air adjustable front fork. For bikes with a hub motor, this bike is probably the best spec bicycle you're going to find in a step-through frame. In fact, I had to go to mid-drive step-throughs to find anything that had components of a similar level. If you're interested in getting a juiced bike of your own, whether it's this RipCurrent S Step-Thru or anything else, please use the link in the video description to make your purchase. It supports the channel when you do. Be sure to subscribe for more e-bike reviews. I really appreciate you watching The Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.